Hi, and welcome to Follow the Reader, a mini video series in which I interview members of our community to share our thoughts on books, reading, and libraries. My name is Karen Leahy, and I'm the Digital Services Librarian at the South Kingstown Public Library. Today, I'm joined by author Tabitha Lord. Hi, Tabitha. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you write?
Sure. So as Tabitha Lord, I write speculative fiction. I have a science fiction trilogy that's complete that I tour with at various Comic-Cons, and it's available on all platforms. It's called the Horizon series. I have some short fiction that I've sold into different markets, podcasts and other anthologies and magazines for sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. I was the managing editor for the Ink It Writers blog for about 3 years. So I created content mostly on writing craft. I edited other people's work and I wrote a weekly column. I also write as Maggie Clare, and as my pen name, I took my grandmothers, Margaret and Clare, and they were both passed before I was ever published on any platform. So I thought I would do that to honor them and write the steamy stuff under their name, which I thought they would get a kick out of. Nice. So I have 4 books in that Tactical Solutions International Romantic Suspense series. The latest, Moving Target, just released about a month ago. And I don't do much signing in person with those books, but they're available, on the usual places.
Okay. And I understand you're going to be at the Rhode Island Comic-Con this week.
I am. I have 2 panels that I'm moderating. One's on world building and the other's on character development. That one's called A Hero, an Anti-Hero, and a Villain Walk into a Bar. So.
Nice. I like that. And I understand that you live locally, but you're getting ready to go on a big adventure.
I am. We've lived in North Kingstown for 19 years. Our youngest child was born here and she's off to college this last September. And my husband and I, all 4 of my children now live on the West Coast. So we are like, what are we still doing here? Yeah. And after we dropped her off and came back, I'm like, we're rattling around this house like 2 old ghosts. This is silly. It's a family home. It's too big for us. So we bought an RV. And we did sell the house already, so we're leasing back until after the holidays, and we'll be taking off the first of the year and to parts unknown and just kind of planning a grand adventure. And, we can both work remotely. So we had a super duper Wi-Fi put on the rig and, we can basically work from wherever. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really exciting.
It's exciting.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. What are you reading right now?
So I am one of those funny people that reads many things at once, as long as they're not similar in tone or genre. And I kind of have a thing where my nighttime reading on my Kindle is my steamy stuff. So I'm reading a Kaylea Cross. She writes romantic suspense. I try to read a little bit in that genre because that's what I write, but I also read all kinds of romantic stuff on my Kindle. And then I have a site called Book Club Babble where other authors send arcs and I do reviews and author interviews, sort of a tangential thing to my own writing business. And I have the option to take or not take any book that I want, but I often will choose something I wouldn't normally read or choose myself. So I'm reading this book right now called Midnight on the Marne, and I'd never heard of the author before. It's not her first book. It's really well written. It's a World War I historical fiction with a time changer, an alternate history twist. So it's been really interesting, unexpectedly interesting read.
Oh, that
and
sounds great.
Then for myself, I listen to audiobooks. So the books that are just the ones that I'm choosing, like, whenever Diana Gabaldon releases a new Outlander, I'm like, drop it right onto my audio. And so they're the ones that I've been waiting for my favorite authors. So I listened to Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary just recently. It was so good. And I'm currently on a Sarah J. Maas kick. I'm on a high fantasy kick right now, so I have that on my audio, and I'm just tooling through all of her books, and they take a long time, which is wonderful because I hate it when it comes to an end, and I'm like, no, it's all done. So
yeah.
That's what I'm reading.
Yeah. And do you have a favorite book you've read recently?
Favorite? Oh, that's so hard to ask an avid reader, but I will say that one that I recommend to everyone that I meet is Circe by Madeline Miller.
Okay.
And I listened to it on audio, and it was just so beautifully written and intriguing. And I was a classics major, so all the mythologies, I'm familiar with. And so it was very kind of nostalgic to read about that stuff. And I thought, how will she bring this fictional, godlike character to life and make us care about you if you don't have, if there are no stakes, you can't die because you're, a god or the daughter of a god. Like, how do you do this well as a writer? And man, she sucked me right in, and it was so beautifully done. And the audio version was phenomenal. So I recommend that one just kind of across the board to anybody. I'm like, I have one for you to read. There you go.
Good. Now tell me, are you a bookmark person? Do you use a real bookmark? Do you use a found piece of paper? What do you use?
So I just, I knew this was the question you're going to ask, I opened up my book to see what was in there, and I have a friend's RSVP to their wedding.
Okay.
Is in one. I dog ear some of the paperbacks that I've read a bunch of times. That's something I do. Bad, I know. But I also just reordered my bookmarks.
Oh, there you go.
My book. And I'm like, I'll bring those down. So they're coming with me to Comic-Con this weekend, and they're just promote my sci-fi trilogy. But yeah, I kind of pick up anything along the way that will stick in my book, and try not to dog ear the pages, even though that's a bad habit. Sometimes. Yeah, it does.
Do you have a favorite place to read?
I tend to read in bed. If I'm reading my Kindle, I tend to read it in bed because it's my nighttime, routine. Mm-hmm. If I'm reading for Book Club Babble and it's something that I support of my work day, I'll often just curl up in the library for a half hour, 30 minutes and read an hour or whatever, and read curled up on the chair in the library with the cats. And then the audio is great because that comes with me in the car. And when I'm driving anywhere, or if I'm doing chores around the house, I stick my phone in my pocket and just listen to it. So depends on the thing. Is where I read or listen.
And if you could recommend one book to everybody in our community to read, what would you recommend?
That would be that Circe that we talked about, I think. Okay. Although I have also recommended Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, and especially the audio version. Even if you're not a sci-fi lover, it's really it's just a fun read, and so well done. And he's so knowledgeable about the science that even if you're not a science person, it just, you sort of like, you learn something new too. But the geek in me just loved that. But Circe's my sort of like latest and greatest. Just give it a try. It's so good.
Yeah. And what do you love about libraries?
Oh my gosh, I love the smell. I love perusing through the stacks. When my oldest son, who's now 29, was a baby and I was home with him for, those few months that you are, I would take him for a walk to the library every week, and I would have my backpack that I would stuff full of, and I never got through all the books, but I loved having them stacked on my table.
Yeah.
And then as the kids got older, we did Mondays at the library, after school. And if it was when they were little, there was activities for them, but then it just became our routine. And our library has a little pond behind it. So we'd bring bread for the ducks, and we'd feed the ducks, and then we'd go in and we'd pick out books. And reading aloud to my kids was a huge part of, we read every single night, and I have 4 of them. So that was a lot of reading. And the older ones would enjoy, listening to the younger ones' books. And then we'd get up to theirs. The other ones would be dozing off. And it was just a lovely, ritual that we had as a family. But I'm so nostalgic about libraries. It's just everything. I love everything about them. Yeah. But I love that you have knowledge and access to books at your fingertips from everywhere, and
it's nice. Yeah,
it is nice. It really is.
And now you already mentioned one, but do you have any special memory a library that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I have my memory with my own kids at the library, and then being there as an adult picking out books. But my fondest memories are probably when we were in school, from as young as kindergarten all the way through elementary school, having library time every week. Mm-hmm. And that was my favorite time. And I used to grab the same book probably, at different ages, many, many times over. I'm sure like the little stamp was in there for me or the little sign out card was me many times over for those favorite books. But I always loved that time. I was an avid reader even as a kid, and it was just like a little escape. And it didn't matter if things were going, crappy during the day, or kids were being mean or whatever. That was always my little fantasy escape place, and I loved it. So I just have this fond, Pavlov's dog response when I walk into a library. Everything will be okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Do you expect to try to visit some different libraries when you go on your adventures?
I probably will, although it'll be difficult to take out books if we're not going to be, if we're not going to be able to return them, but some of the bigger libraries are really beautiful, so like the Providence Public Library. I've been to the, some of them, Boston, or the big cities that have the big libraries, and the Library of Congress was actually, I spent hours in there. It was just such a cool place to visit. Yeah. So, yes, if it becomes something that we can do as an adventure,
Yeah. Well, that is all the questions I have for you. Would you like to nominate anyone to be on Follow the Reader?
Well, my girlfriend Heather Rigney is also an author. She's an art teacher, and she has a very wide variety of things she reads and enjoys as well. So she would be a great person to talk to, and I can give you her contact if you'd like.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sure. So that is all for now on Follow the Reader. We'll see you next time.